Well, our pattern change is finally underway, and that means business is about to pick up with severe weather back in the picture as far as the eye can see, including strong tornadoes, very large hail, and damaging winds. I'll show you just who will be impacted and when. Plus, rain is falling in the east, and the winds are sweeping through the plains. So grab those umbrellas and hold on to your hats because we've got the top down, the pedal to the metal, and one hand on the wheel. And what's that in the trunk? Oh yeah, it's all the weather because this is Cold Rain's Weather World and it starts right now. Hi folks, and welcome into another exciting edition of Cold Rain's Weather World, the fastest growing new weather show on the internet, where we've got all the weather. And yes, that means a look at the rest of your work week forecast, your weekend outlook, a look at the long range, and a look at this upcoming severe weather threat. And it's not so upcoming anymore. It's actually upon us starting today for the next several days. And so we're going to take a look at all of that. Plus, we even look at Earth-related geological, space weather, interstellar weather, events, things like that that might impact you as you go about your lives. But we always begin with our Weather IQ question of the day to test your weather IQ on a range of topics. And today's topic is actually related to weather modeling. And so here it is. Here's the question. What term describes a computer-based model that predicts future weather patterns? A, a crystal ball. B, algorithmic climate reader. C, numerical weather prediction model. Or D, pressure inverter model. Okay, so if you know the answer, type it in the comment section and we'll see if you got it right. If you don't know it, just hang on till the end of the show and I will tell you the answer, and then you can go tell it to all your friends and show them how smart you are and send them over to Cold Rain's Weather World so they can get smart too. All right, that's how it works. Anyway, we'll get into the weather right now. So we're going to start the show today as we usually do by taking a look at the satellite imagery because it reveals to us the key features that we need to look at that are going to be impacting our weather. And of course, there are several key features here to take a look at. Looking over here in the east first, we see this upper low that's spinning over the Ohio Valley. It is now opening up and moving to the northeast. This has been a thorn in our side over the last few days in the east. It's brought heavy rain and severe weather. It is now moving up and will be out of our hair in a day or so. Until then, expect plenty of rain and showers and thunderstorm activity in, around, and near this low pressure over the east. We also have an active subtropical jet stream, and pieces of energy are going to move into the south and play a role in creating potentially severe weather over Oklahoma and Arkansas as we get later on into the weekend. And finally, we've got this big low pressure in the trough in the upper atmosphere that is going to create a low pressure in the plains. This trough is sitting over the Intermountain West, and it's going to help spark showers and thunderstorms today, some severe across the Dakotas into Nebraska. So those three key elements are playing a role in our weather over the next few days. Looking at the hazards map, there's several bright colors here. One of those spots is down in Texas, where temperatures are going to soar into the hundreds, around 110 potentially down near San Antonio today. So extreme heat warnings are up down here with heat advisories are surrounding. Rough start to the summer holiday, or not holiday season, but summer season. Some of you will take a holiday or a vacation, but in any event, it's going to be a rough start down here to the summer season with high temperatures in the hundreds. And we've got plenty of wind to deal with back here in New Mexico, where we have high wind warnings and red flag warnings, meaning low humidity, hot temperatures, windy conditions. Don't burn anything out here. Winds could gust into the 60s. We also have high wind watches up for portions of South Dakota tomorrow. Probably you're going to see more wind advisories issued as the surface low deepens. Gradient winds are going to sweep across the plains and bring winds up to 60, maybe even 70 miles per hour in spots. This is a windy situation that's going to develop in parts of the plains, even outside of thunderstorms. Fog in Kansas and also in Wisconsin. Air quality issues where there are wildfires burning up here in northeast Minnesota, and air quality issues for pollution down in Dallas. So That's why we've got some winter weather advisories up here, and a winter storm warning in Montana for heavy snow. They're going to get snow all week. So that's what's going on there. The surface map reveals all of that to us. We see snow in the higher elevations, potentially up here with that low pressure getting organized over the plains. Big zone of general shower and thunderstorm activity with a localized area of severe weather from south central North Dakota, much of eastern South Dakota, and much of central and eastern Nebraska, where we could see severe weather breakout this afternoon. So that's what's going on there. Taking a look at our high temperatures. High temperatures again soaring into the 100s, maybe even close to 110 in spots down here just south of San Antonio. Lots of 80s and potentially 90s up through the plains into the southeast. A little bit cooler in the northeast, where we're seeing temperatures running in the 70s and 60s in spots as we have clouds and rain around, and then that trough in the west will keep things a little cooler out there. This afternoon, here's what the SPC is highlighted for the risk area. We saw that on the other map. Tornadoes are possible, particularly down here in the southern end of that severe weather threat, where supercells will be predominant to start at least, and we could see a little bit more discrete activity, and that would be where we would find the larger hail too, down here in central and southern Nebraska. So as those supercells spin and remain kind of discrete, that means isolated by themselves, they will produce more dynamics in the atmosphere. You can see larger hail and more of a potential for tornadoes a little bit farther to the north. You know, the wind threat exists up here, but we should see a little bit more organization of thunderstorms into clusters and line segments through the afternoon and evening before it all diminishes well into the overnight hours. And so that would bring more of a wind threat up here with general hail involved. And so here is the CAPE for this afternoon. The thunderstorm fuel surface moisture will be increasing as we move through the afternoon, and you can see the resulting CAPE as the atmosphere cools aloft and warms up beneath. We see CAPE really running and nice, nice and moderate here over Nebraska. It's a little bit less up here in the Dakotas, but we've got more shear up there, and so we'll see more organization of that, and so that'll offset some of the lesser CAPE. So we can see that how that flows through the evening, and then overnight that will eventually all diminish as that activity works on through and the atmosphere begins to cool. And so if we take a look here at how this all play out. We're going to see this after lunchtime. We'll start to see activity develop in the Dakotas, and you can see that activity breaking out. This is simulated radar for this afternoon, and so all of that activity begins to break out, and you'll start to see some of that discrete activity form down here in Nebraska as well. So all of that will organize into a line, eventually the line segments and clusters, and move on off up through Minnesota eventually, and kind of end the threat as we get way into the overnight hours. But in any event, look for supercells quickly merging into clusters and line segments in the Dakotas, and potentially some more discrete activity in Nebraska, keeping the threat of tornadoes and large hail intact down in these areas. But all of that will end overnight as the atmosphere cools. That is your severe weather outlook and your, let's see, today, what's today? Oh, that's Wednesday. That's right. It's our Wednesday forecast. Now, before we get on with the severe weather threat that sets up tomorrow through the end of the weekend, I wanted to talk briefly about an event that happened way back in 1921, a solar event that still has relevance for us today in terms of how we think about solar weather and what it can do. So between May the 12th and 14th, 1921, the Earth experienced one of the most intense solar storms of the 20th century. Massive solar flares and coronal mass ejections disrupted telephone and telegraph systems worldwide, even creating fires in some of those systems in Sweden and New York. It was actually known as the New York Railroad Superstorm. And so it highlighted the the vulnerability to space weather of early electrical equipment. And we still have that vulnerability today, where the electrical grid remains unhardened for the most part, meaning a big solar event could interact with the magnetic field of the Earth to wipe out a lot of the electrical equipment needed to run our everyday lives, sending us all back to the Stone Age. Hopefully that won't happen. Hopefully we'll make strides to harden our grid. The same thing could happen in the event of a nuclear attack where a nuclear device is detonated in the upper atmosphere, sending an EMP, creating an EMP that would, again, wipe out some of this equipment. So the sun acts in much the same way, and it can and has in the past produced events that would create such an event. Hopefully that won't happen anytime soon, at least not before we can get things hardened. But we do have sunspots rotating toward us that are active, and I'll show you that. We've seen a couple of solar flares, but we'll take a look at that here at the end of the show. In the meantime, we're going to get back to our weather and look at the severe weather threat for the upcoming weekend and the end of the week, or the end of the week and the upcoming weekend. So as I said at the top of the show, the pattern is changing to a much more active severe weather pattern starting today in the plains and then moving over into the Great Lakes and I suppose western Ohio Valley tomorrow, with a large area of enhanced risk for Wisconsin into Michigan, northern Indiana, and northeastern Illinois, with a slight risk, level 2 risk around that, and then a marginal risk, level 1 risk around that. Tornadoes are possible. We're going to see a tornado threat emerge tomorrow, and it may be that northern sections of Illinois and Indiana have the best threat there for tornadoes, with discrete supercells for a time and the potential for a little bit more in the way of those cells remaining discrete for longer. So we'll see how that shakes out, but that's what we're looking at. Wind is the greater threat over much of that enhanced area, and hail as well. Large hail potentially. You see a large area of hatched, meaning 2-inch hail or greater. So that's what we're looking at. The conditions are going to be right for hail, with low freezing levels, moisture at the surface, strong instability creating strong updrafts, and wind shear aloft. So large hail is certainly possible. Destructive hail even is a possibility as well. As we shift on into Friday, the severe weather threat shifts a little bit farther south into the mid-Mississippi River Valley, into the Tennessee Valley. And then as we look out on Saturday, there's really not much of a threat, it looks like, by looking at this map. However, don't be deceived. There are severe storms are going to exist. It's just right now it's too difficult to determine exactly which areas are most favored. I expect as we go through the next couple of days, you'll start to see an outlook issued for Saturday. Sunday, with a little system coming in from the subtropical jet, we could see severe weather breakout in Kansas and Oklahoma. And then that's Sunday in Oklahoma. And then on Monday, we could see Kansas included in that as well. So that is your severe weather outlook for the next couple of days. What is driving all of this? Well, much is driven by the mid-levels. And if you look here, starting tomorrow afternoon, you can see, or this afternoon rather, you can see this big trough in the west that we were talking about before. You see that right here. See? There it is. And watch this little jet streak here. Jet streaks in the upper atmosphere, the mid-levels of the atmosphere, help create wind shear, and that fuels severe weather. And so as we go on through this afternoon and evening, we see that jet streak moving into Kansas and Oklahoma. There's going to be capping down there, so it's going to be very difficult. Even though we have strong cape and good shear, there's going to be a cap in the atmosphere. It's going to prevent big thunderstorms down there. Otherwise, we'd have a big severe weather day. And so as we move on into tomorrow, Thursday, we can start to see that by tomorrow afternoon, that low closes off. We're going to see a surface low develop in the plains. The jet streak in the mid-levels gets stronger and stronger, and that moves on into the Tennessee Valley as we work into Friday. So we're going to start to see that influence the severe weather threat in that area too. So big area of severe weather potentially on Friday too. Going on through the weekend, that low is very slow to move through the Great Lakes. It will eventually do so. And then on Saturday, again, a corridor of of a nice jet streak here. And so that's the, strong upper winds are going to help us define a severe weather threat on Saturday as well. And so we'll see that occur over the weekend, and then we get on into Sunday and Monday, and look what happens. That low continues to move into the northeast. So I'm sure we'll see some rain along the east coast and the northeast as that low moves in. Another trough coming into the west coast on Monday. Sunday into Monday will eventually set the stage for another severe weather outlook. And look what we've got here by the time we get to the end of the European model run here. The GFS agrees with this too, by the way. We have this closed low here over New England. And then what does that look like? An omega block, right? There's our sideways smiley face again. That means trouble when we see this. And so that is going to be a slowly moving pattern with multiple severe weather threats. And it's not going to end just because the weekend ends. Next week, we're going to see another system move in that will bring another round of severe weather out ahead of it. So we're in an active pattern. It's going to stay that way. Looking at how that's all going to play out at the surface. Big low pressure here in the plains. Looking at tomorrow afternoon, that is going to continue to move forward. Look at this. It's going to break severe thunderstorms out through Minnesota, Wisconsin, back into Michigan. The Europeans not so excited with some of the activity down here on the southern extent of this, but we certainly should see more development than what we're seeing on the model. And when that development takes place, it's going to be in an environment that's going to potentially produce some significant tornadoes. So you need to watch out in Indiana and down here into Illinois, down back into Missouri as well, as we get into the day tomorrow, just in case some of those supercells do develop down there. They'll go severe quickly. And then as the threat shifts south and east through the Tennessee Valley on Friday, we could start to see some clusters and line segments develop and move through and maintain themselves. And if we do that, if we see that, we'll see more of an organized wind threat over a broader area. Saturday afternoon, we're seeing a little bit of activity down here in the plains, Central Plains, lower Mississippi Valley. We'll see that continue. That other low swings on off to the north, brings some showers up into New England. New trough coming into the west coast. Activity in the southern branch, again, kicking off showers and thunderstorms over Arkansas as we get into Sunday. So that is your sort of a look ahead at the weekend, and then we get back into early next week. We're dealing with another trough working in to the west coast that will set the stage for additional rounds of severe weather. So that's it. That's the severe weather threat. That's how the weekend outlook is going to take shape. Looking at the temperature map for the rest of the week into the weekend, very warm in the essentially the eastern section of the country. Most of the warmth is going to be confined in those areas from, say, Minnesota all the way back into West Texas, where we find 80s dominating the pattern, a little bit cooler in the north, if you can call 70s cooler, and then the trough in association with that low pressure, keeping it a little chillier out in the west. Still hot in South Texas. That continues to be the case. You guys are under the gun for a heat wave out there with temperatures in the 100s. So we get into Friday, much the same 80s for much of the southeast. Continuing to see 80s across the south and southeast, but a little cooler across the northern tier as we're seeing those systems move across the north. And then as we get on into Sunday, new trough working into the west, systems across the north, clouds and rain up there, keeping us cooler into the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Warm in the south, 80s and 90s, plenty of moisture around, so it's going to feel muggy and humid with potential for showers and thunderstorms. Long range outlook, 6 to 10 days, starting the 19th through the 23rd. Below normal across the northern tier as storms swing across, above normal across the south, Alaska nearly normal, and Hawaii above normal. Above normal signal for precipitation, of course, with all those systems moving through and energy in the atmosphere. We're going to see showers and thunderstorms across much of the country with the exception of Florida and the west coast. It's those troughs move in, but they're not bringing a lot of moisture into the west coast. They'll bring up moisture out of the Gulf. And so Alaska will be above and Hawaii will be above as well. Nothing going on in the volcano world at the moment. We did have a couple of big earthquakes. One occurred in Tonga, 6.4, but nobody really felt much there. And then a 6.0 occurred in Greece. And so we've seen an uptick in tectonic activity. There was some shaking there, but I don't think there was a lot of damage in Greece. But look at this, our earthquake map out here. We've had one off the west coast, another one. These are about 3. I think these magnitudes are around 3. So that one's in 4 in Nevada. Depth of 9 kilometers out here off the west coast. No tsunamis with a 3.0 magnitude earthquake. And then another little 2.0 here in California. And what's this out here in the Midwest? This is in Oklahoma, 2.3. So quite a few little earthquakes in the United States as well. X 1.2 solar flare came off the limb of the incoming sunspot. So we're going to watch these continue to pick up as we move through the next few days. This sunspot is already discharging solar flares. X is the highest designation, and they go up X1, X2, X so on, so on, so on. So we'll watch this as it rotates around toward us. No aurora viewing, unfortunately, for those that like to view the northern lights. Low likelihood, and the view line is way up in Canada. And that, my friends, is your weather forecast for today. And that brings us to the answer to today's Weather IQ question. The question was, what term describes a computer-based model that predicts future weather patterns? Crystal ball, an algorithmic climate reader, a numerical weather prediction model, or a pressure inverter model? And the answer, of course, is the numerical weather prediction model, an NWP. That would mean things like the European model, the GFS, the Canadian, the NAM, the HRRR, and so on. They're based on atmospheric equations. All the data that gets put in from the atmosphere, all the observations and the measurements get fed into these models, and the various models do their thing. They spit out predictions of the weather over the next day or 2 or 5 or 15 or 20, depending on the model. So now you know about weather models, and now you know about the weather, and now you can tell all your friends about Cold Rain's Weather World. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you're not, I'll keep you up to date on the severe weather as we go through and start to define some of these threats as they become a little bit more clear over the coming days. But continue to like the videos if you like them, leave comments. I pray for all of you every day. Please pray for me too, and if there's anything specific I can pray for you over, leave it in the comments section. Okay, well, that's it for today. I hope you have a great day. This is Cold Rain reminding you that if other stations run 24/7, we got you covered 48/14 right now, right here at Cold Rain's Weather World. Take it easy, everybody. Have a blessed day.